Hello and welcome to the Toronto Council on Aging Masterclass Speaker Series, Combating Ageism, Celebrating Diversity, and Promoting Inclusion. We're happy to say that this project is funded in part by the Government of Canada through the New Horizons for Seniors grant program, and we are excited to start with our first session featuring Ava Goodman. The Toronto Council on Aging is a nonprofit charitable organization that addresses the issues and concerns of older adults in Toronto. Our vision is to create a community that respects, values, and empowers seniors. And programs such as this one are one way that we do that, as well as a number of other programs we have on the go. If you're a member of the Toronto Council on Aging, we are glad you could join us for this session. However, if you're not a member of the TCA, and if you enjoy this session and the series, then please visit our website and consider becoming a member. So about this series, seniors represent a growing segment of the population in Toronto, with more people over the age of 65 than under 15. Many seniors volunteer, work, or are in the process of seeking work in Toronto. Despite their ongoing contribution to our community, ageism continues to impact how seniors view themselves and the process of aging. Ageism is recognized as the most tolerated form of social prejudice, with 25% of all Canadians admitting age as a factor in how they are treated. The Masterclass series is one approach that the Toronto Council on Aging is using to combat ageism in the City of Toronto. Our goal is to highlight the diverse, unique perspectives of aging held by seniors living in the city. We hope that you enjoyed this session and this series.
So I'm just going to introduce myself, tell you a little bit about my background, describe my neighborhood where I live, which is downtown Toronto, and talk about specific issues that have been dealt with during this COVID, which I've been taking a few classes on therapy, and about self-care, my strengths and support systems that you'll hear a lot about some of the organizations that I'm involved with, and how I coped during this pandemic, as well as some of the goals that I have for this year. I'm hoping to have some goal setting for this year. So the next slide, please. Catherine has all the control over this slide, so okay, so here's my picture. I did this as part of Doorstep Diaries. And Doorstep Diaries is something that I've been involved with since August of last year. And so that's the first page. It's a collage. And the picture is me in Paris, as well as my Picasso-like image of me. And the Monet, and some Monet scene. I was at the exhibition in Paris and the one here in Toronto. So I'll describe more of Doorstep Diaries later on. So continue. So I was asked to give myself a definition of who I am. And it's one of the activities we did in the inking part of Doorstep Diaries. And so I describe myself as an artist. I have sold some work. An explorer, that means I'm an adventurer. I go off on trips. I'm curious. I have a curious mind. I'm always learning. I care about certain issues. And I'm an activist. I'm more progressive on the political scale, involved in the environment movement. So next one. Next slide. Okay, so this is my work history and education. So I'm going to more or less ramble on about, I began my life in Montreal, 31 years with a BA in art history. And I did work for McGill Library System when I was there, and then I worked in administration. But because of the politics, I decided to leave and move to Ottawa. And there I worked for federal government departments, and then went back to school and got a PR diploma. Now, from that, I worked in marketing and advertising and publishing. And then when I really went back and decided that I wanted to still teach, so I did recreation leadership with a specialty in seniors. And at that point, then I did do some internship with some nursing homes in Ottawa. And then I did move to London, Ontario, because I felt that Ottawa was just not for me, and it also had to do with the politics. So I did get I did work more in Parks and Recreation while I was there. And then I moved into career and work counselor diploma when I was here in Toronto. I moved to Toronto in 2004. So it will be 18 years in May. I did other areas, mainly in education, where I trained as an ESL instructor. And I was teaching mainly business and academic English. And I actually really enjoyed that. But also to understand that I did work in arts administration in both London, and I also did some art teaching here in Toronto and London, Ontario. So the next slide. Currently, I'm an artist. I consider myself an artist. I live in a co-op, which is over 100 years old. It's in downtown Toronto. There are 3 units, so there's about total 90 units. I'm in St. Jamestown, and it is the most crowded place in Canada. That means that we are very dense. We've got a lot of high rises there. It's got a lot of services, which makes me very happy to be there. There's a St. Jamestown Community Corner that came about because of the 2010 fire in 200 Wellesley. So there have been some shootings in the area, unfortunately, last year. And I'm close to Sherbourne and Dundas, where there's a lot of shootings. So sometimes I don't always feel safe in my neighborhood. And that's not so great, but that's a reality I have to live with in downtown Toronto. Next slide. So I have volunteered for long-term care. Right next door to me is Fudger House. And across the street from me is a Rickeye Center. And a little bit further down on Sherbourne is another Rickeye Center. So there's a lot of long-term care facilities. And believe it or not, I note the one down, the one next door to me, Fudger, and the one further down, both have had COVID cases and deaths of COVID. I don't know what happened across the street, but it was definitely in the news and in the paper that of their deaths. So next slide. But I happen to be very fortunate. Across the street from me is Wellesley Community Center, which has a library, it's now closed, a gym upstairs, and a fitness center. So I am really lucky when everything is open to have all kinds of physical activities, intellectual activities, an auditorium, multi-center, all kinds of events are going on there. And we have a pool now, which is now closed. And we also had a COVID clinic. So it's really an amazing center. It's been an emergency center. It's really a multi-facility, and I'm really glad to have that across the street from me. Next slide. And I'm also happen to be in an area where there's pharmacies and grocery stores up the street. I can walk 2 minutes up the street. I've got Shoppers Drug Store. I've got a flu center, and I've had in other places where there's been Shoppers, I've had my booster shot down at Jarvis Street, Front Street. And I've also have within my area 4 grocery stores. So I really don't have a problem with the main, with my recreation and my groceries and my healthcare. It's all there, including the fact that I've got 2 subways. I've got Sherbourne and Wellesley, and I've got 2 bus routes. So I consider myself really fortunate, even though we do have issues with, you know, as I said, with shootings and violence, but that's part of Toronto, living in Toronto, I think. Next slide. So during this pandemic, I basically did a lot of walking. That seems to be my big thing, going to Wellesley Park, going to Riverdale Farm, visiting Atward Gardens. It's amazing. They have every season, they've got a new set of gardening. I love it. It's great because, you know, you can enjoy the flowers. They're going to have a spring show soon, but unfortunately it's been renovated, so it's difficult to see anything, but I can go in there and walk around. So I've been doing a lot of walking, and I think that's been one of my great saviors in terms of this pandemic, is just to walk a lot. Next slide. And so this is Wellesley Park. That's the park where I would go and visit, and that's an autumn scene. Now it's winter. I still go there. I also, on the other side, is a painting I did of Taylor Creek, right behind Cedarvale Community, the Stan Whitelow Community Center. So I did a painting. I would, no, sorry, that's not the wrong, sorry, that's not the place. It's not Taylor Creek. It's what it is. It's Todd Morden. That's Todd Morden. I'm between the two of them, between Taylor Creek and Todd Morden, I've been doing a lot of parks. So that was a painting that went into a show. Next slide. Okay, so now this is if you click on it, it should show up. There, we're gonna see a video if you click on it.
If you knew Edith Morgan, who was an activist in this area, she was a social worker in Collingwood in the 60s, and somewhere in her 70s or 80s was a founding member of the Older Women's Network equivalent in Victoria. And she said, not all of us have the opportunity to age positively. But it doesn't mean we don't aspire to aging well. And she also said to me, and I continue to hear her when I'm ever in these sorts of conversations, is it is my right to die at home, alone, on the floor, if I choose. That is where I want to die. And if that's how I have to die, then that's okay. But that's my choice. Now that's very confronting for any of us who work in this sector. And I get calls all the time from media and government saying, what are we going to do? You know, there's this person who's been found 12 months after they died in their home. Isn't that appalling? Now, what I want to know is what's appalling. Is it took us 12 months to find them? Or is it that they died alone and possibly in pain? That I find difficult to deal with. And was it their choice? It may have been that they weren't able to connect and find, they weren't supported in ways in which they were able to find ways to connect. So usually my response is, we do not want a service that calls up each day and goes, are you dead? That's not actually what we say, but we say, Mrs. Jones, you okay? And they say, yes. You say, okay, I'll ring them tomorrow. Now, I would prefer us investing in upstream. Mrs. Jones, how would you like to be involved in our community? She might say, I don't. My mother-in-law used to say, the less people I see, the better it is. And another woman said to me once, if I see another 4-year-old tap dance, I could kill it. No quality and meaning in what was going on. It was, you know, it was a bit like the Protestants said, work ethic. Idle hands do the devil's work. So we fill people's time with things that we think they should enjoy. One woman's taught me a lot at Mount Royal. She was not involved in anything. When I started, I went around and introduced myself to people and had a chat and talked about what they liked. And of course, the staff were involved in that process because they knew a lot about the residents. And I said, so what is Mavis like? Nothing. Watch out for her. She's aggressive. Okay. So I went and chatted with Mavis and no expectations. It was just a chat. And, a few weeks later, I had another chat to her. I said, so what do you like doing? Talk about what did she used to do? What were things of interest? What were the things that she really didn't like about where she was living? It turned out that, you know, she actually liked watching Days of Our Lives. Her choice. And we'll run around the place. We'll run at the same time. So what was her choice? You come to activities, you watch Days of Our Lives. So I said to her, so apart from Days of Our Lives, you like that, and you hate it when they try and take you away from it. What would you like to do? So I don't know what's possible. And that's one of the problems with CDC. When we start to talk about choice, we've been very used to, here's the cupboard, what would you like? Here's a set of things, you choose one. Sometimes we come down to choice, which is there's nothing. That's not choice. So Mavis and I continued our conversation. It turned out she liked cribbage. Now, I grew up in a house where my grandfather said it's good for your maths, you've got to learn to play cribbage. If you don't know what that is, happy to teach you. So I happened to say to her, I can play cribbage. Why don't we see if we can find a few other people and play? And I mean, I had a great job. What a great job. I got to play. I used to get paid to go to football. That would be the only way I would go to the football. Couldn't get me there any other way. But great job. So Mavis and I and a couple of other people set up a 4 o'clock session of class, and anyone was invited, and that grew. And she would come. And someone said to me, "What's the secret?" I said, "I just put on the time she wanted to do it. Not hard." No one had sat down and had the conversation with her about what was important and how could that happen. And he had to talk.
Yeah, it's basically that. So I'm sorry for the audio, but are we going back? Let me explain what that was all about. I chose that because it's about not telling people what you're supposed to like, but actually embracing by having that conversation with them. And so often, and I have been, and I was trained to work in retirement homes, in nursing homes, where we would plan it for them rather than engage in a conversation about what it is you really want. And so that's, and also so that's really what that's all about. The other thing is, the best book I've written on retirement is called The Victory Lap Retirement, Work While You Play, Play While You Work, by Mike Drake. And I highly recommend The Victory Lap. It's the best book for Canadians, no matter where you are in terms of the economic spectrum. He really does talk about positive aging. The other thing is about aging well is that you take a positive attitude to aging, and that, you know, it's a yes, I can do rather than no, I cannot do. And that's what I think is really important about an attitude to aging. So the next slide, please. You just have to, okay, so this is where I am in the pandemic, somewhere in the middle. I think we're sort of all in the middle, hoping to come to the end of the road. And that bridge is really the past. It's sort of based on Monet, and it was also part of art therapy. Let's Art It. I take a class on Mondays. Sorry? I take a class on Mondays, and what it is this class is about discussing issues, how the pandemic has affected us and moving forward. I've also done classes on the science of positive psychology with Coursera. And I've done another one, I'm doing another one, sit less, be active. Oh, there you go. Be active. Don't sit in front of your computer all the time. And yes, I have done a lot of Eventbrite, and I'll comment later about that. So, you know, hopefully there's a bridge somewhere. So the first part of my doorstep of this last year was in August. I'm now involved in 7 months. It's a Doorstep Diaries through East End Art. And we had 7 months of being trained with various artists, everything from collage making in August to handwriting, to watercolors and inks, to learning comics, and now Zentangle, which is basically doodles with a pattern. And we're winding it up. Today we started to wind it up. We're going to be having a show in April at the East End Art, the first 2 weeks. And I've met some really amazing seniors, a great group, a great community. And what we were asked to do in this prompt was to come up with a statement, live one day at a time. And I think that pretty much defines our COVID, live one day at a time. And the artwork was done from a watercolor that a watercolor class that I'm still involved with. So the next slide. And I'm also involved, I had done a Mosaic Panel. So this is something that was done through Appleton. And I was given all these tools, all these mosaics. So I went outside in the courtyard. I had to throw them on the floor and then pick them up and then glue them down. But I had to come up with a design that involved food, because this was going to go into a church. We were all volunteering. We all learned how to do this mosaics over the month of November, and we had 10 participants. And so if you can see at the bottom is a fish, maybe. On the side on the right is a corn. Above that is an apple. And at the top is a banana. And then on the side is supposedly bread. And this is before the grout went on. I decided not to do the grout. I was very frustrated and I did not want to interact with anybody. I did not want to go out. It was November. Things were starting not to become so great. And I decided, no, thank you. Someone else will grout it for me. So I have no idea what the end result looks like, but it was part of my volunteering. It was the one bit of volunteering that I've done during COVID. The next slide. And I'm also volunteering in theater. I am involved in a theater company. Now, how did I find out about this? Through Eventbrite. So I actually created a character. It's a mystery, not a murder, it's a mystery with 10 participants, all seniors. We're going to have a performance sometime, I guess, in April. We're meeting this weekend. That was us me in costume. So Sophia, the character I created, is 78 years old. She's a retired architectural technician, and she loves to photograph. And she becomes the assistant detective to the detective to find out what happened to the chef. The chef disappears. And so that, anyhow, we're creating the story as we go along, and I'm having a great time acting. It's lots of fun. Next slide. I'm also with the Don Valley Art Club. That's a piece of work that I sold in the last spring show, fall show. This is my new technique. I am now dealing with acrylic pouring. So the sunflowers that you see have poured paint from there. And I'm doing a lot more patterning and collage making. I have also given a presentation on Kickstart Creativity to the Don Valley Art Club. We're on Zoom now. We've been doing that for 2 years now. And but this summer I did go to Plan Art. I went outside and I painted, and that was fine, no problem. So this Friday, I'm also giving a presentation on motivating artists. And it'll be a very short presentation. It's part of a bigger presentation on motivating artists. And my view is a prompt. So this COVID really brought me to the situation where I had to get connected. I was not connected to the internet. My brother and sister demanded that I get internet. And so in May of 2020, I became a Fido customer. And then I started taking all kinds of online classes before I discovered Eventbrite. And Eventbrite, my first class was basically with Macmillan. They do demonstrations and lectures. And so I heard a lecture on the Group of Seven and other artists. But as I said, I'm with a number of theater groups, watercolor classes, exercise classes. I'll go into more detail. But this, what you see right now, and I'll show you some pictures, is that I have a brand new office, brand new MacBook. My old one was 14 years old and needed to be replaced, and a brand new iPhone. So yes, I have updated myself, including a backup drive. So moving on. But I did travel. I went to Whitehorse. In July 2021, I turned 70, and I decided I'm getting out of Toronto. It was quite challenging because I had to download my forms. They wouldn't let you in unless you had your 2 shots. Okay, send us the shots, send it to the health department in Whitehorse, and then you fill out a form. I downloaded the form, and it was fine. I think the scary part of traveling is that back then, of course, you didn't necessarily have to get on a plane and be vaccinated, but so we didn't know who was vaccinated. Now, of course, it's changed. But I did go to the Klondike Ribbon Salmon restaurant, and I had Artit char, and it was wonderful. I stuffed myself. I couldn't believe it. It was the best meal I've ever had. Of course, I love fish, but it was really just a wonderful trip. Next slide. And this is also Whitehorse. So as you can see, that's the overhead. I did a lot of hiking when I was in Whitehorse, a lot of walking, and I also saw crows. That amazed me. I saw foxes, crows, and bald eagle's nest. with all our little baby eagles. It was really quite something. And then, of course, we had the shutdown of the museums and the galleries. And so everything became immersive. So did the Van Gogh, the Monet, and the Gustav Klimt. I'm a real fan of Gustav Klimt. I love the patterns. I love the design, but I have to tell you, Monet was equally fantastic. I am also a great fan of Monet, and I have been to Paris and seen the Monet exhibitions. Here in Toronto, I did do the Winnie show, and I've done the Andy Warhol show. Now the AGO is open for visiting. I have an annual pass, and I hope to get back to the AGO and to eventually see things in person. But it's really challenging because you have to book everything, and I think that's incredibly frustrating. I am also with the Senior Social. So that means if you have a membership, you can actually do Zoom classes once a month with seniors. You have a lesson on the art in the exhibitions, and then you actually see part of the show, and then you have a lesson, and it's great. I love it. I can't wait to do this in person. Next slide, please. Okay, so here are some of the issues, unfortunately, to do with the pandemic. We have Doug Ford, and finally he actually did raise the rates. We have the despair of the job search. And of course, all of us are probably affected by the fact that our grocery bill has gone up. And so what I have done is looked at it from another perspective. I have actually given a lot of donations over the last year and this year, because I'm not traveling. So I felt it was important to give something to causes that will help people, whether it be the food bank or Doctors Without Borders, or women who are assaulted. I felt that was very important to do something. Right now, I'm also with an environment group that deals with, every 2 weeks, we're dealing with economic issues and progressive economic issues, which is what I believe is what we need to get further out of this economic crisis that we also have. Next slide. We also realize that democracy is in peril. And fascism is on the rise in both Europe and the United States. And we could see fascism by the end of this decade in the United States. They're headed for autocracy. My brother is an American citizen married to an American in Iowa. And it used to be a swing state. It's not anymore. This is something that we in Canada have to be very aware of, particularly what's going on with the truckers in Ottawa. And there's going to be a demonstration this Saturday in Toronto as well. Next slide. So instead of traveling, I did a lot of online shopping. Well, I bought an art studio. I designed an art studio. I put together an exercise station, a home office, kitchen appliances, Keurig, coffee maker. And you can see in the back there, it's red, green, and my color coding was gray, red, and green. I saw a lot of Property Brothers in the morning before I would watch Justin Trudeau. And that was the beginning of this pandemic. But yes, I basically did a lot of online shopping that I would never have thought of to do, or to completely remodel my place in 2 years. Next slide, please. So that's exactly what happened. I ended up with 2 years of throwing stuff out, pretty much decluttered my place. And then I had to put it all back together again with the Marie Kondo system of organizing, which meant that I had to organize an art studio, a home office, and an exercise station. I'm going to comment about that, about how much work that was involved in the next few slides. Go ahead. Next slide. So the art studio. In order to put that art studio, I had to empty a room and took 2 classes online on how to set up an art studio. I had no idea. I seriously did not realize that the lighting was so bad. I had to buy a lighting system. Desks. I had to get more plastic drawers in there, and I bought multiple amounts of supplies, of which were actually sent to me through, I actually did a lot of online purchasing of art supplies. So yes, that was something that I had never done before, and that became one of the ways of stocking this art studio. So I have pretty much everything from drawing sketchbooks to acrylics and watercolors to crafts, mosaic tiles, which I got from the mosaic experience that I had. And previously with clay hand building, I also have that as well. And then I got into printmaking. And that's something that is brand new to me, but I am starting to work with jelly prints in the Don Valley Art Club, something I would not have thought of, but I'm actually enjoying it. So the next slide. So this is the back of there, a home office, the chair, the desk, everything was recycled. 14-year-old MacBook, 5-year-old iPhone, signed up for Netflix, and I got rid of cables, phones, you name it. That I think was really the last bit in terms of the decluttering of that, because that MacBook was the MacBook Air was bought in September of 2021, and by January of this year, the screen died. I had a line in it because it was beside the radiator, and I had to move my whole office to another side of my room. And so that's why I have a completely different setup. I also realized that when they said to me, you have a backup, and I looked at them, what, backup? I had to buy a new backup because my backup system also died on me. So I have basically invested in completely a whole new set of electronics. Next slide. So exercising has been one of the things that I kind of mentioned. I went online and I discovered a number of YouTube videos, Zumbas, fitness, cardio, also was for seniors on Tuesdays. So I have signed up for these online classes, and that's okay, that's fine. It's one way of keeping fit. And I also have a fitness journal as well. And of course, I had to buy all this new exercise equipment because I had very little equipment. All of a sudden I needed weights and I needed resistance bands. And before you know it, there I was with a whole new setup. What that meant was when I would go to a community center when they were open, people weren't wearing masks. The instructor all of a sudden was asking us to sing in a class. And I have to tell you, I was more scared in community centers. So sometimes I would go to a class, sometimes I wouldn't. I'm still not sure about what to do when things open up. I will take it slowly, but to understand that I was signed up for almost 5 classes of community center classes and everything crashed in January. So it hasn't happened. And I also have a pool next door that is also not open. But as soon as everything opens, I will be back in person and very happy to be in person. So one of the things that I have noticed about this whole COVID business is to be able to take care of yourself. And the famous line at the beginning of this whole COVID was this poem, "We are in the same storm, but not in the same boat. Let's navigate our routine with empathy and responsibility." I think responsibility is the big one here, being responsible for ourselves, for our own care, getting our shots, getting 3rd boosters, eating right, sleeping right, and just doing the things that are important so that you can get through and feel good about your day. And I did read Dr. Gupta's book on aging. I highly recommend. He's very good. There's a lot of writers out there. I do keep a sleep journal because I've had issues, lots of problems with sleep. But I also ate a lot. So when I checked in September 2020, I was very much close to a very bad weight. And I decided to go on a Mayo Clinic diet. I have lost 16 to 18 pounds, depending on which day of the month and the week I'm in. And I'm now on a Mediterranean diet where I eat a lot of vegetables and fruits. And I keep a journal. It's basically a wellness journal. And I'm one size down, which is why I had to buy a whole new set of clothing. Thank you. I ordered from Hudson Bay and Joe Fresh most of 2020. However, my cooking caused me a little bit of a problem. I was taking Jamie Oliver's class and using a lot of oil, maybe a little too much oil. And I would walk away and watch the news, and oh dear, on September 30th, smoke appeared it started to filter throughout the whole apartment. And before you know it, the fire alarm goes off and the firefighters are knocking at my door. Well, no, it's not a problem. Okay, open up your windows. And I realized I had to change my way of doing things. And so less oil, stand in front of the pot and make sure that everything's okay. And yes, you learn the hard way. But it was an experience. Of course, as we age, we also have drugs. So I'm on osteoporosis. I have osteoporosis. I've had it since I turned 53, and I've been on various drugs. I'm now off drugs, but they're going to put me back on drugs in 2022, probably for the rest of my life. I'm also on Lipitor because I had high cholesterol, which I couldn't contain. So I now will have that for the rest of my life. Next. So this one is on strengths and need to work. Maybe we could see this one. It's a really good one on positive aging and aging well. Do you think we can check this one out? It's a video.
Our special anchor, Maria Shriver, is back with more on that, Maria. We hope so. We hope so. We're counting on it. Well, most of us associate getting older with losing our memory and lots of aches and pains. But now there's growing evidence that these ailments are actually preventable. You're about to meet some seniors whose brains are stronger and their bodies healthier than ever before. At 74, Nancy Esbedian has the brain of a 20-something. If you keep doing things mentally and physically, they all come together. This Massachusetts grandmother is part of a special club of seniors known as Super Agers. In memory tests, their brains are as sharp as people in their 20s. Their memories are very youthful and they show no evidence of memory loss. Neuroscientist Lisa Feldman Barrett wanted to know why. So in a recent study, she scanned the brains of more than a dozen Super Agers and got the shock of her career. We found a whole set of regions which are much thicker and much better connected, which means they are more youthful. And in fact, when you look at Super Agers' brains and you compare them to young people, they're indistinguishable. So what keeps these older brains so young? The word boredom has never been allowed in my house. Researchers say Super Agers like Nancy challenge their brains and bodies on a regular basis, exercising daily and pushing themselves to master new skills. In the last year, Nancy's learned how to play piano, chess, even pool. One of the things that they seem to do is push through discomfort. If you cultivate that feeling of yuck at least once a day and kind of push through it, cultivate yuck. Yeah, that feeling of, I can't do this, it's really hard, I want to stop, but you just do it anyway. And it's not just our brains that can defy older age. At nearly 80 years old, these women move like kids, playing jungle gyms, even climbing trees. Do you actually believe that people in their 50s, 60s, and 70s can be moving like they were in their 20s? Maybe even better than that. So, like, what's your instrument? In their new book, Dynamic Aging, fitness expert Katie Bowman and her clients, Joan, Laura, and Joyce, reveal the simple movements that have boosted their brains and cured their aches and pains. It's move in a different way than you have been for the last 20 or 30 or 40 years, because all of those tiny shifts in movement, they do the same thing as the movements that you do in the gym. You adapt to them. So by changing the way you walk, by changing the way you stand, by changing the way you move through life, you avoided surgery? Yes, exactly so. Bowman says one of our worst habits is sucking in our stomachs to appear thinner. Over time, she says, it can cause constipation and other health problems. So learn to relax it. Can you let the abdominal wall in the front drop down towards the floor? Another health trick, strengthening our legs by changing how we move up and down from chairs. Many of us use momentum as a crutch. Less momentum and less falling, both on the up and on the down. Steps to turn back the clock and make what's old young again. Okay, well, another key to Superaging is the kind of stress in your life. Experts say constant toxic stress from relationships or work environments can be very harmful to your brain. But occasional bouts of stress can actually be good for it, as long as you stay hopeful and positive. And another thing they talked about is walk around in bare feet. Right. Get used to that. Stretch your muscles out. Constantly be moving. We become way too sedentary. You have to get up and move. So fast. That was so fast.
I agree. I hope that inspired you. Yeah, that's okay, next slide. Yeah, I hope that made you aware of what we need to do to move forward. So this part here is about joining Let's Artit, and you can actually join them through Eventbrite on the Markham Arts Council, and it is for seniors. You have one on Monday and one on Wednesday. Right now, there's 12 wonderful people from around the world that I relate to, and this is about flexible thinking. And you basically start with a checkup, then we do a dance. We literally do a happy dance, and then she gives us a prompt, and we write and we draw, and I'm keeping a journal. So let's move on. So resilience, anti-fragility, and coping. So basically what has happened is that we've all gone into ourselves, but we've all have to find ways to actually be strong and to have this grit. So I got into one of the things with Doorstep Diaries is comics. So I got into this one about the fear of not getting out of bed with this Omicron because the world has gone upside down. And that's the image of the map of a upside down world when I was in Phoenix, Arizona a few years back. But really, that's not where we want to be. What we want to be is this bucket list. And that bucket list was also part of the Let's Art About It. And some of the things that I love to put into the bucket are reading, walking, exercising, eating right. And the other part of it is how much of a risk do you want to take? Do you want to be forever wearing masks, or when do you think you will be ready to take off your masks and go sit in a restaurant? And so those are some of the questions we all are asking ourselves. And a really good book I read was about Dr. Jennifer Aston. She wrote about COVID and prevention. It was an excellent book. I highly recommend her. Next slide. So part of it is the everyday risks. Well, one of the things is that I've had emergency issues in where I live. My door, the knob came off and I was trapped. Well, I was actually the screw was loose and I couldn't get through to the office. That's where you see the door. That's because the office, the phone went down. And I had to ask someone in my building to go down and knock on the door and get them to come and fix my doorknob. And once that happened, after an hour of trying to get through, within 5 minutes, that doorknob was fixed. So I then realized that I had to go around and start asking for phone numbers in my building so that I would have other people to interact with, because I don't know when this is going to happen again. It was a fluke. It was totally a fluke. Also, because of COVID, I needed extra food. So one of the big things is always buying for 2 weeks to make sure in case something would happen, I would have enough food. And so that was part of the emergency planning that I'm sure we've all gone through. But the other part of it is how much of a risk, as I mentioned, do I want to take when I go outside, when I'm inside a store? How far do I stay away from people? And, that's one of the things that I have to keep thinking about when I will stop having to do that. But I want to go away. I want to go this year. Ontario is allowing us to have a refund to stay overnight at a place, and I do want to travel. So that's so much for risk management. But the other part of it is what has happened in terms of long-term care. That most of the people who have died live in long-term care, and it's still underfunded. And I'm going to show you a slide later on about long-term care and who is how they're being funded across the country. But right now, BC has the best healthcare system. And the cartoon at the bottom is about long-term care. Oh, sure, take a look at the funding and look at what's happened with the buildings that are falling apart and everything else that's still not in place to protect residents in long-term care. Next slide. So I've joined a lot of art groups. I'm not going to list them all, but that is the image there is from Parkland. It's a sketch group we meet at the end of the month. It's Parkland in Toronto, the free school. But I'm scheduled pretty much almost every day of the week to take art, whether it be the Don Valley Art Club or a watercolor class or doodling, illustration, you name it. I've got all kinds of things, journaling, and a felt club with older adults on Friday at the end of the first Friday of the month. So yes, I am busy relating to people, and I think that has really helped me to improve my art and to feel supportive. However, I've also joined other groups, and part of it is in Toronto Council of Aging. I'm now a member. They have programs as well. But the big one is the Ontario Society for Senior Coalition. I highly recommend them. Right now, I'm taking a course on disability education. It's a 6-week course. It's on Thursdays at 9:30. You can join it through Eventbrite or just type in OSCO and find out more about their education programs. I've taken Power of Attorney. I've taken courses on cannabis for seniors. It's amazing. They're amazing. I'm also with the Senior Neighborhood Network, and I know somebody in this workshop right now is also a member, and we meet monthly and we talk about different issues. And since I am in a co-op, I also have access to different courses. My family doctor, this last year, I visit my family doctor. I've been visiting my doctor last year in 2021. That means I've had 6 shots. I've had the flu, Shingrix, 2 Shingrix, and 3 COVID doses. So last year was, I think, the extent of more family checkups than ever I've had in my life. And then, of course, there's Live Green. I'm with Live Green. I haven't done anything with them, but I do recommend volunteer organizations. And I've heard many seniors talk about volunteering has helped them get through this COVID. It's been very important that they volunteer. My family and friends, I've been checking up on them on FaceTime. My brother and sister-in-law are in Iowa. My sister and brother, my family is either in Iowa or in Montreal, and they've all had health problems. It's unbelievable. I'm the one who's healthy, and I've had a friend who's had health issues. So keeping in contact with people, making sure they're okay is very important. And goal setting. So I live day to day, but I'm planning to go away. I hope to go away. The image of 2020 is Entangle, and it's part of the Doorstep Diaries that I was doing. This is the tiger, the year of the tiger, and the dream catcher was part of a watercolor class that I did with Kathy. But I hope to get rid of my art stuff. There's too much art clutter that I still have to get rid of, and that's art books and art materials. I do want to go to fairs and art galleries and travel, and that's what I'm hoping, to keep learning new things and keep planning. And maybe, yes, and I'm planning to go to Vancouver Island in May. That's my big thing. So wrapping it up, we're coming to the end. The big thing is daily gratitude and journaling. What does gratitude mean to you? This is an image on being grateful. It was part of Doorstep Diaries, one of the statements on handwriting. And the watercolor was from Kathy Wild's class. I keep a wellness journal. I really recommend you at some point in your life that you really do look at journaling as a way of exercising your ability to take care of yourself, to feel grateful, to keep track of your health. It's important. I also keep a Let's Art journal because I do therapy once a week. And of course, I've been doing the Doorstep Diary. The Doorstep Diary, which I will show later on. I don't know if you can see me, but yeah, I'll show it when we're done, that this journal has been passed around by a number of times. And I do recommend journaling. Last one. Okay, so we're getting to the end. So the post-pandemic and a new world. Okay, so this is a statement that I actually believe we're having. We are breaking with the past. There's no turning back. So learn important lessons because trends are happening and a new world is transforming. I really believe that we're all part of this experiment. and how we come out of it will make us a better world or not. But the book that I read is called The Madness of Crowds by Louise Penny. And her premise, she's a mystery writer. I love her. I read mystery books like you wouldn't believe. But this one is about an economist who predicted statistically that if we eliminate seniors and young babies that are disabled, the disabled, we will be able to be economically strong. So that person was also murdered. Thank you very much. Part of her murder mystery. That's pretty horrific. But when you consider the fact that the majority of people who were killed in this pandemic were the elderly, that's not so far off. And that those most threatened by Omicron or by COVID were those that had disabilities. They were more likely to have severe impact of COVID on them just by virtue of their disability. But anyhow, it's a great book. Those are my websites and Instagram. Last one. I think there's one more left. One more. Okay, so that's the image that I did. That's the at Atward Gardens. It was at plein air. It was in the art show. And if you could hit on Hill Notes, I will show you the long-term care notes. What this is the comparing long-term across the country. It's a very interesting, you can check it out. And if you need the actual website, I'm sure Catherine could send it to you. There it is. And if you go down, you are able to see the table and where Ontario is and the acts and how much it costs across the country for long-term care. Quebec is pretty cheap. And who owns what? I thought that was very interesting. So that's it for me. I hope that was entertaining. I can open up discussion. This is the diary that I've been involved in. So this is some of the artwork that's going to be published. So
thank you, Ava, for such a wonderful, insightful presentation. And thank you for joining us today. Again, to learn more about the Toronto Council on Aging and opportunities to join in future sessions, please visit the TCA website for updates on future speakers, as well as to view the profiles for each of the speakers featured in this series. We would also like to thank the Government of Canada for funding this project through the New Horizons for Seniors grant program. Have a wonderful day, and thank you for joining us.